Hello everyone, Jonathan Schlack, EAS&Weather here with a severe weather update. We have multiple risk areas that I gotta talk to you about, so I'm gonna get right on it. So first off, we have a slight risk for severe weather today that covers much of eastern Iowa, well, pretty much all of eastern Iowa, I should say, northeastern Missouri, northern Illinois, the far northwestern part of Indiana, parts of western and central Michigan, and southern Wisconsin. That's where we have a slight, and we have a marginal that covers much of the remainder of Michigan, northwestern Ohio, northern Indiana, central Illinois, central Wisconsin, the extreme southeastern corner of Minnesota, parts of central Iowa, and far northeastern Iowa, much of northern half of Missouri, southeastern Nebraska, and northeastern Kansas. Going over to the northeast, that's where we have a slight risk that has just been added for far south central Vermont, western Massachusetts, far east central New York State, northeastern Connecticut, and the extreme northwestern part of Rhode Island. We have a marginal as well that covers much of the remainder of Connecticut, well, all of the remainder of Connecticut, I should say, parts of eastern half of Massachusetts, pretty much all of Rhode Island, southwestern Connecticut, southwestern New Hampshire, southern Vermont, central and southeastern New York State, including New York City and Long Island, northern New Jersey, and much of eastern Pennsylvania, which does include my area, just south of Allentown, Pennsylvania. I am in the marginal as well. So, zooming out and going down here, we have a marginal risk that covers west central Florida, much of the west coast of Florida. So we have a marginal, and we have a marginal that covers much of eastern Utah and the west central part of Colorado. We have a marginal up here that covers far east central Montana, far northwestern edge of South Dakota, and much of North Dakota. So, going to each individual risk, we have a 5% chance of an isolated tornado today that covers east central Iowa, southern Wisconsin, and northwestern Illinois. That's where we have a 5% chance of an isolated tornado today. And we have a 2% chance of an isolated tornado today that covers much of the eastern half of Iowa, northern Missouri, the very far extreme southeastern tip of Minnesota, much of northern Illinois, central Wisconsin, and central Michigan. So we have a 2% chance of an isolated tornado today. So, going over to the wind, we have a 15% chance of damaging wind gusts to 58 miles per hour or higher in much of eastern half of Iowa, northeastern Missouri, northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, extreme northwestern corner of Indiana, and central Michigan. And we have a 5% chance of damaging wind gusts to 58 miles per hour or higher in the far southeastern corner of Minnesota, far northeastern and central and southwestern Iowa, southeastern Nebraska, northeastern Kansas, northern half of Missouri pretty much, central Illinois, and I think I mentioned central Wisconsin. I think so, but I'm going to mention it again just in case. Central Wisconsin, northern Indiana, northwestern Ohio, and much of Michigan. Going over to the northeast, we have a 15% chance of damaging wind gusts of 58 miles per hour or higher in south central Vermont, western half of Massachusetts, northwestern Rhode Island, northeastern Connecticut, and far east central New York State. We have a 5% chance of damaging wind gusts of 58 miles per hour or higher in much of eastern Pennsylvania, including my area, northern half of New Jersey, central and southeastern New York State, including New York City and Long Island, much of Connecticut, much of the rest of Rhode Island, eastern Massachusetts, south central Vermont, southern Vermont I should say, and southwestern New Hampshire. So, zooming out, going down here, we have a 5% chance of damaging wind gusts of 58 miles per hour or higher in much of the west coast of Florida. So, going up here, going over here I should say, we have a 5% chance of damaging wind gusts, don't know why this is updated on me. With a 5% chance of damaging wind gusts of 58 miles per hour or higher in eastern Utah and west central Colorado. And we also have a 5% chance of damaging wind gusts of 58 miles per hour or higher in much of North Dakota, far northwestern South Dakota, and far east central Montana. So, going over to the hail, we have a 5% chance of large hail 1 inch in diameter or larger in far east central Montana, much of North Dakota, and far northwestern South Dakota for that 5% chance of hail 1 inch in diameter or larger. So, we have a 5% chance of hail 1 inch in diameter or larger in northeastern Kansas, southeastern Nebraska, much of Iowa, much of northern Missouri, the far southeastern corner of Minnesota, northern Illinois, northwestern Indiana, far northwestern Indiana, I should say, southern half of Wisconsin pretty much, and much of Michigan. So, going over to the northeast, we have a 5% chance of hail of 1 inch in diameter or larger in east central New York State and southeastern New York State, around the Long Island area, parts of Long Island, all of Connecticut, all of Rhode Island, most of Massachusetts, southwestern Connecticut, and south central Vermont. So, in summary, severe thunderstorms are possible this afternoon and evening across parts of the Midwest and Great Lakes region, mainly posing a risk of damaging winds. So that's the day one outlook I just read to you, just explained to you all. And I'm going to have a separate video that's going to cover the day 2 outlook pretty soon, so stay tuned for the day 2 outlook. But regardless, stay tuned, to the National Weather Service for later statements and warnings from the National Weather Service that may be issued today. And stay tuned for the day 2 outlook that I will release very soon. So, stay tuned for that.